Now, Josh,
Yes.
I'm interested in your thoughts on the Bombers because Josh Kennedy hadn't kicked 5 goals for a long time. West Coast hadn't kicked over 100 points for 26 matches. They hadn't won in Perth for over 12 months. And Essendon go over there and lose.
Yes.
So you can't like that performance.
I don't recall saying I liked it. My view, so I've heard a lot of conversation. I was listening to the Monday means test with David King this morning, and he was talking about round 15, and we haven't seen any desire or intent to defend. Now, that narrative, my view, that narrative is incorrect. We don't really think that Ben Rutten and the coaching staff are not trying to implement
I agree
strong
with that.
defensive structure, right? So that's got to be a given. My view on it is they don't have a personnel built to be a defensive group. They don't have a personnel who are wedded to playing in that space, whether it's getting the ball off the opposition around the contest or one thing they don't have. And for the life of me, I can't understand why they persist with the key backs that they do. Not because they're not okay players or AFL players. Jaden Laverde is tiny compared to the guys.
But who else have they got?
Well, I mean, that's a list management issue, isn't it? That's an issue in terms of, well, why don't you have more big bodies? So Laverde's tiny compared to the big bodies he plays on. Josh Kennedy, I couldn't carry Josh Kennedy's bags, but when you go out and play a game or you prepare for a game and you know that I'm going to get a guy this week that I'm 3 inches taller than and I'm about 12, 15 kilos heavier than, you start licking your lips. You grow because you think, well, I'm going to get great opportunities. If I can get up at the ball, if I can get in a wrestle, I'm going to be able to move this guy around. Ridley the same. Ridley's
he's a third tall.
You look at Jake Lever. Jake Lever's a big guy. He's about 6'4", probably 90-ish kilos, 92, 93 kilos. Ridley's not as big as Lever. And Lever still plays the intercepting role and allows Petty and May to play the key role. So they're all out of sorts with their personnel in terms of their defensive prowess. To me, if we think back to 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, and you know them better than I do, when they've actually played, well, their games at Marvel Stadium, it's been attack, it's been downhill, it's been high scoring. So, I mean, I've been off this view for a little while, and I'm probably on an island that it doesn't why does it have to be, why do we have to be a defensive team who keeps teams to 70? Why can't we win?
Because it wins flags.
Why can't we win 115 to 105? Why can't we do that? Because they are not built to be a defensive powerhouse. They're just not built that way. They don't have the personnel around the ball. They don't have the forwards who have the intent to defend, and they don't have the size down back. So what hope have they got?
Well, you can't change the whole playing group. So is Ben Rutten in danger of becoming David Teague? If he can't get this team to defend better, they have to look elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely they do.
How quickly?
I'm not sure. It's they were really promising last year. So
they didn't defend great though.
No, they didn't. But they're not built to defend.
I understand that, but it's every premiership team's been top 4 in defence.
No, but what he's saying is that you don't have the personnel. The personnel is not. It's a list. Josh, are you saying it's a list management issue with the personnel that they've got on board? It's a list management issue. They haven't developed some of they've drafted a couple of. So Zerk Thatcher was drafted as a key back. He's got a bit more size for whatever reason. It hasn't worked for him.
Yeah, they got Zach Reed, who they've got high hopes for. They
don't have the big bodies, and it's the same issue up front. Now, this is put the defensive stuff to the side. We identified as well on this show that they weren't going to be able to kick enough goals and kick big scores because they didn't have the bodies. You couldn't have asked for more from Peter Wright, but it's been Peter Wright or bust. So from a personnel point of view, the way Essendon are going is not, I don't think should be a big surprise when you just look at the personnel that they've got. Forget about game style. Their personnel just ain't up to it.
But how can they go from finals last year to you saying that, 3 wins is about where they're at?
Well, look at last year. They had really good contributions from Cale Hooker in terms of goals and a contest ahead of the ball. McDonald, Tip and Woody was a really, really dangerous small, medium forward. Jake Stringer had one of his best seasons. He hasn't had anything like that this year. So that, Harrison Jones was promising. Cox had a promising first season. So they've had a lot of drop-offs from a lot of individuals, and a lot of them are ahead of the ball.